Sheikh Abdul Salam, when he mentioned that some of the scholars criticized the book, we have now to resolve something. There is some praise for the book, but there's also criticism. How do you interact with the praise and criticism? Now we learn a principle. And it's a principle you can walk around with and live by in your life. When there is praise and criticism in Islam, jarh and there's ta'deel, and they seem to be contradictory, in Islam there is a harmonizing mechanism. Our ulama have come up with the ways to harmonize it. It's part of the science of hadith, but also extends outside of it. And that's why the majority of the scholars of hadith, fiqh, and usul of fiqh agree. Al-jarh al-mufassar muqaddamun al-ta'deel. You remember this principle. It's very useful, and it helps to explain so many problems. Al-jarh al-mufassar, detailed criticism, muqaddamun takes precedence al-ta'deel, over praise. Even if the praise is a lot more than the criticism. Even if the praise comes from many more than the criticism. Means if many ulama praise something and a few criticize, the weight is given to the criticizers. It's a principle in mustalah al-hadith, the science of hadith, but also in usul al-fiqh, and also now we see in relation to the narrators, the witnesses, and even the speakers. Al-jarh al-mufassar. Al-jarh mufassar means detailed criticism. Tells you why the person is not good. For example, if someone says so-and-so is not a good narrator, is weak, that's not so detailed. As much as someone say he's a liar, that's detailed now. So, jarh mufassar means the reason for the criticism is mentioned. Even though the reason doesn't always have to mention, but when you do find that, in this case we have jarh mufassar without doubt. We have very detailed criticism of this book. Muqaddamun, it takes precedence ala ta'deeli, over any praise for the book. Why? What's the reason for it? Ulama of hadith and usul fiqh, they say, because the one who is criticizing has ziyada, increase in knowledge. He knows more than the one who's praising. Hence why he's moving the principle or the asl of this person from what he was to something else. So the one who criticizes knows more about the person than the one who's praising. Why? Because the one who's criticizing is mentioning a reason the one that praised didn't. And in the situation with the praised one also mentioning why he is good, they must also then address the criticism of the criticizer. It's an important principle, brothers. This principle solves so many issues. Because today, going back to our contemporary time, when we go on the internet, we hear all these speakers. If somebody told you, big Imam, Sheikh so-and-so said this person is not a good speaker. Here's why. 1, 2, and 3. Mufassar, and he gave you detail. There is no speech after that. And now, unless, of course, you believe and you can investigate, is it reliable what he said? Is it found in the sources? For example, sometimes the detailed criticism is not true. In that case, you can say, well, brother, it's not even true. That's a discussion. But let's say it's attributed correctly to somebody. He said it, he wrote it, he believes it. And this needs to be clarified, and this is a criticism which is very seriousness to be taken. And the reason why we're mentioning this principle is that nowadays you find, unfortunately, without such a principle, people don't know how to deal with criticism and praise of books, individuals, or others. Mathalan, somebody may tell you, so-and-so said he's good, another person told me he's bad, now I'm confused. How many times have you guys seen that in the comment section on YouTube? Someone says, I'm confused. He praised him, he criticized him. The mushkila, where is it coming? We have to teach the people, when the criticism comes in detail, from reputable sources, it's actually true. It has to be taken seriously. Praise then is no longer sufficient. In science of hadith, that's how the scholars were able to decide which narrative is reliable or not. Sometimes there are a narrator who is criticized, at the same time another sheikh who said he's praised. Then you have to examine the wordings and the asbab. And the key word here is mufassar. It's detailed, mentioning to you why. Like we said, today we will just mention some examples. But even if I didn't know why, then the scholars then have a different rule. What if you don't know why, or you don't know the detail? For example, there's a jarh, but it's not mufassar, it's not detailed. And the ta'deel, the praise is well known for somebody. Then it's a different story now. It must be detailed. And I'm saying this again, brothers. As a Muslim, as people who are studying Islam, who want to take our deen serious, we need those kind of principles. Because at the end of the day, we're responsible for our deen. We're responsible who we take our knowledge from. And we don't want to make a mistake in something so important to us. Today, sometimes people are taking this very lightly only because I think they don't know They don't know. They don't understand how serious it is, the principles that are behind this. So with this principle being in place, what do we take then about the Kitab of al-Ghazali? What do we conclude then? That in it has a lot more harm than good, it must be avoided. And the ulama, like Sheikh Abdul Salam now, he comes with a solution and a conclusion, which is the following. It's a very beautiful conclusion. Because some of the ulama said then, if Ihya Ulumuddin has so many mistakes, there's no benefit in reading it. Only those expert in knowledge can read it and take any benefit out of it. Shaykh Abdul Salam, he says, rahimahullah, that the mawqif sahih, the most correct view, wallahu a'lam insha'Allah, is that whatever haqq is in this kind of book, then it's found in the books of the sunnah. So we take from the books of the sunnah, and we don't need to take from the books that has mixed in any good and bad. And whatever is in this book, or any book of misguidance, which cannot be found in the books of sunnah, for example, Imam Ghazali has some nice benefit, or some nice reminder, then it is recommended in that case and deserving that we take from that benefit. And who takes it? The one who's qualified. That's why Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and others, they mention that the book Ihya Ulumuddin should be summarized. It should be summarized. All the good left and all the bad taken out. And it has been summarized. Who knows the book's name? Tassim Minhaj Qasidin. Many of us, we know about the Fajr teaches on Thursdays. That's a summary of Ihya Ulumuddin. It's a summary of Ibn al-Jawzi's summary of Ihya Ulumuddin. So it's double filtered. If you want to use that terminology, it's filtered twice. Don't worry. Inshallah. And anything is mistaken there too, the ulama explain it. Brothers and sisters, the reason we mention all of this is that as Muslims and people who are studying our religion, this kind of topic, as much as it is for some people an eye-opener or probably even a sensitive issue, it's not as complicated. Al-haq yuqal, the truth has to be said. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also taught us, قُلُ الْحَقْ وَلَوْ كَانَ مُرَّةً. Speak truth even if it's bitter. We can't hide those points when it's in front of us. I obviously understand that even discussing the status of Ghazali in his book, for some people can be beyond the pale, and it's too much for them to stomach. But we're not criticizing the Imam as much as we are also defending his legacy. Because if Imam Ghazali was, as you said, recanted from much of his views, then how is it fair that someone later on say this is Ghazali's beliefs and his statements? This is what Ghazali holds when he himself at the end of life, right? As the ulama they mention, and his students and his successors mentioned, that he came towards, and he maybe not perfectly, but he was on his way towards the manhaj of the Salaf.